And I'm Ripley.
And this is Comicsplaining,
the show where we explain comics.
Well, I've been told that just the fact that we're very giggly makes it funny, so...
Well, I'm glad that that's enjoyable to listen to. Hi, everybody. We are super giggly. It's really
Yeah,
dumb.
pretty much all the time. That's just who we are as people.
Yeah. What you don't see the behind the scenes, it's me cutting out all the ums and hms and likes and so's, as many as I can, but keeping every giggle.
Yeah. I am very excited for this episode, and I'm sure you've already figured out why. But for the listeners at home, the reason why I'm excited is because we have reached the first issue with Loki.
I thought you were just excited for the new Marvel swimsuit special.
Well, it's always a swimsuit special when you're reading Thor.
Loki's got this ugly scale mail bikini over top of a onesie because you gotta be safe for the comics code.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing that really drives me nuts is how they go back and forth on whether Wanda is wearing a pink bodysuit or whether she's just like, that's her flesh. Like, most of the time it's the bodysuit, but every once in a while in a more modern comic it'll just be like, skies out, thighs out.
Maybe it just depends on her mood. Maybe she just doesn't feel like putting on the bodysuit one day.
It's too hot and humid, and you don't need to be getting all soggy.
Get swamp crotch.
Swamp crotch. Swamp ass really must be an epidemic among the superhero community.
Oh, for sure. Here's the thing about Loki. This is the first issue with Loki, but it's also not the first issue with Loki. And I'm not going to go into this too in-depth, but basically, Loki's first appearance was actually in the Venus comics in the 50s. About 10 years, give or take, before this issue. This is Journey into Mystery number 85, by the way, from 1962.
Not to derail what you're doing here, but I am wondering, is this like the same Venus that shows up later in all the Agents of Atlas stuff, or is this someone else who is called Venus? Because sometimes that's just... I mean, we already have talked about the case of the two executioners.
Well, that depends. Is the Venus you're thinking of literally the goddess Aphrodite?
No, she's a siren.
Well, the Venus comics are actually about literal Aphrodite. I think she's a supermodel or something. I don't know. I haven't read them. I'm not going to read them. But in those comics, Loki made a brief appearance. And the interesting thing there is Loki was Loki, but the Loki that they were portraying was an Olympian for some reason, not an Asgardian, which is very weird because everything else about them was Loki. Very strange choice. But this is Loki's first, I guess, official appearance, more or less.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about Venus, there is something weird where, like, in the old Champion series, not the one you read, the old Champion series with, like, Iceman and Herc and all them, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that Aphrodite was in that as Aphrodite, so it makes the later thing about Venus not being Venus even weirder.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody tuning in, not expecting a full discussion on the subject of Venus in Marvel Comics. You got a treat today!
Big shock, Marvel can't keep their characters straight.
To be fair,
so,
who the fuck read Champions? It's so bad.
Let's get into the issue. Our writer for this issue is Stan Lee, and Larry Lieber is actually credited again, although, again, I'm not really sure what part he had, and then Jack Kirby is the artist, of course.
Maybe one of them did story and one of them did scripting, because sometimes that's a thing. God knows Stan had a hell of a workload at the time.
Yeah, that's fair. Page 1.
What the fuck is he standing on the cover?
I don't know, like a billboard, I guess.
Billboard?
Some kind of sign.
Oh, no. I meant on the cover.
Oh, on the cover. Building.
What the fuck kind of building is this? And how the fuck is the perspective all wonky?
Look at Loki on top of the building compared to the people who are on the ground.
I know. I'm trying to figure out where anything is placed here. But I'll tell you what, I am looking forward to Filbert's frightful future.
Well, I'm glad.
Are we going to actually cover that, or are you going to skip over that like we did about the Sneepers?
It's not going to come up. We have the eye catcher on the first page, of course. It's related, but not directly related.
Thor looks very skinny.
Yeah, he looks very skinny in a lot of these early issues. Something people will notice is that early Loki is actually quite swole. He is about the same size as Thor, which is weird. And also that something people might notice is they hadn't really established Loki's signature look yet.
Yeah.
So, like, the basis is there, but they're wearing, like, a dinosaur hoodie.
You can see elements of it, but there's also this other element of roar is how I say I love you in dinosaur.
Yeah, it's, like, reddish-brown, and it looks like a dinosaur, so it's very strange.
It's got a lot of spikes, but also a ponytail, along the same line of his head.
Yes. Page 2. Here is where we are seeing the Bifrost and Asgard for the first time. It's very exciting.
It's kind of a pastel rainbow.
Yeah, it's not great. They didn't have a lot of colors to work with in older Marvel, so a lot of the time the Bifrost doesn't look like a rainbow so much as just a selection of colors.
I actually do want to talk about colors in early comics for a little bit. I know we haven't gotten anywhere near our story, and God knows I'm going to just make this run forever again. But something I find is interesting is Loki's color scheme is green, which is fairly common, you'll notice, for a lot of the early Marvel villains. There's a lot of green to go around. So this is, at least according to what I've read, to do with the printing technology of the time. You'll notice that a lot of our heroes were different shades of red and blue and gold sometimes. Primary colors, hero colors. There were a very limited number of colors to work with though, so villains kind of got green established to be one of their colors. I think mostly because of the color technology, because they had a limited number of colors to work with. So you'll notice that a lot of the villains are green.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have definitely noticed that, but if you're not into comics or you're just getting into comics, it is interesting to note.
There is a reason that they're all green, and it's not just like green is an evil color.
Green is the evil color. Okay, so this is our first time going to Asgard and seeing gods who are not Thor, basically. We start with Loki, who has been trapped inside of a tree by Odin as a punishment, which is very cruel and unusual, I would say. Trapped in a tree, completely unable to move, and he can't escape unless someone sheds a genuine tear for his plight. It's implied that this is never going to happen because everyone hates Loki, which is cold. Very cold.
He must have pissed everyone off pretty fucking bad.
Yeah, it's a theme. So, Loki's in this tree, right?
Yeah.
It's unspecified how long they've been in this tree, but we see Heimdall in this weird purple snuggie.
You know.
The designs, Loki is not the only one whose design has not been finalized at this point, so all of them kind of look a little weird.
I think Heimdall should stick with this look. I think that if movie Heimdall ever shows up again, it should be with this look.
Yeah, something else that people might notice if they're coming from the MCU and haven't read any comics is that Heimdall is white in the comics. He shouldn't be, but he is. So Heimdall is walking past this tree, and Loki apparently has been in the tree long enough to, like, suffuse it with their essence or will or something. But basically they make a leaf fall off the tree and brush Heimdall's eye so that
this leaf looks way more like a feather than a leaf. Also, this tree looks like an evergreen, not a deciduous tree that could shed a leaf.
Yeah, it's also a very weirdly shaped tree, just in general, but I guess it's a magical Asgardian tree, so whatever.
Yeah, oh sure, just write it off with magic, why don't you?
Sometimes that's what you gotta do. Loki gets out of the tree, and immediately they're like, alright, well, the first thing I need to do is go fuck with Thor, of course.
Okay, hang on, I need to back up a second here and talk about... Oh my god,
we're never going to get through this issue!
I know, but look... Because of my plight, I was able to gain control of this tree, and thus I was able to affect Heimdall's eye. Therefore, my plight did indeed cause him to shed a tear. Shut the fuck up! That's some bullshit logic.
Well, that's what Loki's all about, though. It's a loophole.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you that is the exact kind of thing that Loki deals in. Because they're a trickster god.
I cannot believe Odin did not get a little more specific with this.
He never does. On the next page, we see Loki has found Thor entertaining children in a hospital by using his hammer to lift a bed, I guess?
I've never seen that. That's new.
Yeah, it's strange. So, Loki hops on the Bifrost and comes to Earth, and they're like, well, I better blend in. So, they put on a suit.
That's kind of a look.
It is a look. Loki does not look bad in a suit. So, Loki's like walking around NYC looking for Thor, and they realize, I'm never gonna find him in this group of people. Imagine for a second that you're a Viking from the 10th century and you just go to New York City. How overwhelming would that be, just the amount of people? So Loki's like, I gotta do something to draw Thor out. Loki's method of drawing Thor out is to turn 3 people into negatives, it says. They look like photo negatives, basically. It's interesting to note that this doesn't appear to have any effect other than making them look like photo negatives.
They could go through life like that.
Yeah, they could. Like, it doesn't kill them. It doesn't even, like, stop them from moving or talking. In fact, they're skanking pretty righteously, so...
The dude on the right is absolutely throwing down.
Yeah, it's shocking, but for all intents and purposes, harmless. But everyone's freaking out anyway, and then Donald Blake is in the crowd, and he goes and
of course
turns
he
into
is.
Thor. And then he comes back, and he's like, oh, I gotta fix these people. If I rotate my hammer fast enough, it will emit antimatter particles.
Excuse me?
And then he says, now I'll just use the hammer as a superfan to blow the antimatter particles at the negative victims. And that fixes them.
This is the worst stand science yet, I think. This is way more egregious than speed attracting cold.
This is only the beginning for Stan science with Thor.
So, I'm not 100% sure, but don't, like, antimatter particles, when they touch matter particles, explode?
I think so.
I might be mixing it up. There are a couple different concepts that are kind of similarly named, and I think this is one of them, but I think they explode.
I think they do. So the fun thing about Stan and Thor is that Stan is not satisfied with just saying that Thor can do things because he's a god and he can do crazy stuff. He has to explain it somehow, but he doesn't understand science, so his explanations are not good. It would be better if Thor could just do the thing, and we all accepted that, but no, we have to make up some nonsense.
I really need to note for our audience that it sounds like we're constantly slamming on Stan, but I legitimately love the Silver Age comics. They are so charming in a really ridiculous way. So I don't hate this at all. I'm not slamming on Stan Lee. It's just really fun to laugh at it at the same time that I am having a blast.
I adore Stan. I hope he's doing good wherever he's at. So Thor hears these people, and Loki, still in disguise, walks up to him and is like, greetings, Thor. It's been a long time, hasn't it? And Thor's like, who the fuck are you? So Loki changes back into his bikini and his dinosaur hoodie, and Thor instantly recognizes him. So, on the next part...
Hang on a second. I know I'm stopping you a lot, but, like, Thor gets Donald Blake's memories, but Thor also gets Thor's memories, and Donald Blake gets something. Okay.
Yeah.
So he just gets all this new knowledge from being Thor. Why was he doing all this science testing in the beginning? I guess that might explain how he just knew what shit did, because he has all these memories of being Thor. Well, it wasn't like explained at the time, so now I'm just trying to put the pieces together after the fact.
Well, I don't think that's what was intended, but that's the way that you can interpret it. At risk of making this episode go on way too long, I wasn't going to bring this up this early, but when you're reading Thor comics, I mean, when you're reading any comics, but especially Thor comics, you have to go at it with an open mind and the ability to interpret things very loosely, because Thor is obviously based on a mythology, and when you're studying mythology, you don't read one translation and then just accept that as fact. You have to read everything and form your own conclusions and make your own theories about it.
You know my theory about how comics are kind of modern mythology mixed with soap opera? That actually fits in fairly well with that theory, because how often have you come at a headcanon where it's like, well, actually, that can make some sense if you look at it from this way. So it really does kind of work in a way with my whole comics or modern-day mythology.
Yeah, comics are like that purely because they've been going for so long, and they change writers and stuff, so there's just been so many different interpretations in the canon even, so you really have to cherry pick which ones you like best. But on the subject of Thor being that especially, I'd say Thor is probably the only one that I wouldn't recommend to someone to just pick the most recent series and read that, and that's just how it is. I would recommend, if you're going to get into Thor, you need to get a fairly wide-angled lens on it, because there's just so much information, really. Part 2, The Vengeance of Loki. Loki has now found Thor, revealed themselves to Thor. So Loki's like, let's fight. I'm gonna stand on this carpet and make it fly.
Okay, but what the fuck, Jane? God, women are written so bad.
I totally forgot that was on this page, but yes.
Loki!
So Jane Foster,
a lovely name, and he seems so dashing and romantic.
Jane thinks that Loki is dashing and romantic in his dinosaur hoodie.
Roar is how you say I love you in dinosaur.
Oh my god. So, that's ridiculous enough on its own, but when you consider that Jane also has the hots for both Thor and Donald Blake, and seemingly Loki at least a little bit, it's like, do you have any standards, girl?
Maybe she just has a thing for gods.
Yeah, she just has a fetish, I guess.
It's her kink, don't kink shame her.
Loki makes this carpet fly up in the air, so Thor starts helicoptering his hammer to fly up after them. This was apparently Loki's plan, because by swinging his hammer above his head at a certain rotations per minute, the sunlight is reflecting off of the hammer, and the flashing light in his eyes hypnotizes him. Loki is able to give him suggestions.
I just want to know also that Thor is thinking that I must accept his challenge. I have no other choice. It's like, why? Because he made a carpet float? Because he's here? Because he said, I want to fight you? Why don't you have any choice? There's literally no reason you need to be fighting right now. And you get fucking jumped like this.
So, now Thor's hypnotized. Loki orders him back down to the ground. I guess they go to Central Park because it's like a park area that they've gone to. And Loki orders him to throw the hammer into a pond. But because Thor threw the hammer, it comes back to him. And Loki's like, oh shit, I forgot. The hammer comes back when he throws it. Which is like a weird thing to forget, because that's one of Thor's main powers, but okay.
Maybe he's been in that tree a while.
Yeah.
He's been in the tree since before he got the hammer.
Unfortunately, no. But, so Loki's next plan is he wants to get that hammer away from him. That's the thing he really wants to do. So his next plan is he creates an illusory other Thor. He tells the real Thor to give the hammer to the fake Thor. And Thor is like, yeah, the hammer belongs to Thor, so I'll give it to him, I guess. But because the fake Thor is fake, the hammer just falls through his hand and falls on the ground. And after the hammer falls on the ground, Loki tells Thor to go to the zoo and let all the animals free. So, you know, things are going pretty good for Loki right now. So some people come by and see the hammer, and they try to pick it up, and they can't, of course. Meanwhile, 60 seconds passes, and Thor turns back into Donald Blake, and apparently, in the form of Donald Blake, he's no longer hypnotized. Don't ask me how that works.
I don't know. I think you brought this up at one point before, and I was like, that makes no sense. But now that I'm reading it, it actually makes sense to me. So don't ask how that works.
Things change, I guess. So
this hammer is just getting longer and longer.
Yeah, it's very, very long in this issue. Donald, comes back to this place where these dudes are trying to pick up the hammer, and they're, you're like a little skinny dude. You're never going to be able to pick this up if we couldn't do it. But he picks it up, and here we see the second time that Donald, transforms into Thor in front of people, and then gets away with that.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, once again, there's a blinding flash of light, and these guys are like, hey, where'd that skinny guy go? I don't know, but look who's wielding the hammer now. I don't know, but Thor's here.
I've been listening to you, but it's hard not to focus down the page and see this shit with the fucking birds.
Yeah, well, we're about to get to that. So, Thor goes back to fight Loki again. And Loki's like, oh, fuck, I gotta run away. So, he goes into this flock of pigeons, and the flock of pigeons carries them into the air. I don't know if Loki has cast a spell on the pigeons, or has communicated with the pigeons.
Pigeons are just the natural allies of evil.
And I also don't understand how they're holding Loki up. Does Loki have 1 foot, a pigeon on each foot?
1 foot on each pigeon?
1 foot on each pigeon, that's 50 feet. No, a pigeon on each foot. And if so, how are they flying? Because that's not how swarms of animals work. They can't just be a mass. It's not like a cartoony mass of things that can move in unison.
Also, he's much heavier than he looks.
Oh, yes, that's a great point. So, Loki canonically weighs about 600 pounds. So, if you're telling me that some fucking pigeons are gonna be able to carry that bitch, I'm sorry, I just do not believe it.
2 pigeons.
2 pigeons, 1 on each foot.
A foot on each pigeon.
A foot on each pigeon. So,
I want you to draw me a picture of a 50-footed Loki standing on 50 pigeons.
Are you asking me or our listeners?
Yes. If you want to send us fan art of 50-footed Loki, not 50-foot tall Loki, Loki with 50 feet on 50 pigeons, send that in to comicsplaining@gmail.com.
No.
We'll post it on our social media.
Oh, God. I hate this. So, Thor takes off after him, and Loki with his pigeons goes to a theater, like a stage theater, not a movie theater. And they go in, and they get up on the stage, and Thor follows them, and they drop the curtain on him. This is a common tactic that Stan likes to use, is people dropping fabric on each other. It happened in the last Thor issue we read, and it also happened in one of those X-Men issues that we just read.
The canvas.
So Loki runs out of the theater and then runs down in the subway. And they're running along the subway and they push people down as a distraction. So Thor jumps down just in time and pushes the railroad tracks up into an arc over the people. So the train goes up above them.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's good that he saved them, but that puts so many more people on that train at risk.
Yeah, real world physics, the train would not just casually go over that bump.
A train would derail and we would have a bunch of people seriously injured versus 2 people Loki pushed on the tracks. If you could jump down, just grab them and jump up. It had to take a while to bend the fucking rails up. This is a ridiculous way to solve this problem.
Yeah, this is silly. So, on this page, we also have another very good Thor face. Thor makes a lot of really good faces. So, having saved these 2 people and irreparably damaged the subway system, Thor runs back out where Loki went and sees that Loki has brought to life a Pegasus from a gas station sign. And Loki is riding this Pegasus and just smashing stuff, having a temper tantrum. So Thor's Loki
was convinced that they had to have a battle, they had to have a fight, but he's not really fighting him much as he's just running wild.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems pretty Loki to be fair, but this is kind of silly. This is not a good battle.
It's silly. It's not.
I guess he wasn't saying that they had to battle in good faith. He was just trying to get him up there so he could hypnotize him.
So Loki's on this Pegasus, and Thor grabs this big pipe from some construction that's happening and throws it at Loki, and it somehow perfectly
knocks him off the gas station.
lands on Loki's head so that they're inside the pipe and stuck.
There is a lot of bizarre construction in Marvel New York. Like, New York City has a lot of construction, it's just inevitable, but there's a lot of really weird construction in Marvel New York that makes not much sense. Like, what are they doing? Whatever.
I don't know. I would, however, like to point out that the noise that Loki makes when this pipe falls on them is glub.
Fucking Homestuck.
Oh, fuck you. I will come down there and I will get you.
Do it, motherfucker. The sun is beautiful.
Loki has this pipe stuck on their head and torso area, basically, and they fall off the Pegasus and fall into the water. Here we learn that, according to legend, Loki's magic powers are useless in water.
I'm gonna keep that in mind because I'm sure this will absolutely continue to always hold true. Loki's powers are useless in water, and this will never be contradicted again.
No, never. This is the kind of thing that I feel like, because it hasn't been established at this point, but Loki is Thor's younger sibling, right? This is the kind of thing that I feel like Loki probably told Thor as a joke, and Thor just took it seriously.
Oh yeah, I can't do magic in water.
Yeah, that's totally how it works. Like, that's exactly some dumb sibling shit.
It is.
So Thor dives into the water to rescue Loki because they will drown because they can't use their magic, I guess. So Thor pulls them back up on the ground and Loki's like, hey, stop so that I can dry off. And Thor's like, no, you're going to stay wet so you can't use your magic because that's
how that works.
Yeah. Thor takes Loki atop the world's tallest skyscraper, it says.
Ouch.
Which is very nondescript.
It looks like it's
Thor's plan.
It looks like it's being drawn to probably be the Empire State Building, but I don't even know if that was the tallest then.
When was it built?
The 30s.
30s? Okay. Thor's plan to get rid of Loki is to tie them to his hammer.
It might have been the 20s, actually.
Okay, so he ties them to his hammer and then throws them super, super hard so that they traverse the entirety of space back to Asgard. Where the hammer safely deposits them and then returns to Thor.
Within 60 seconds. All of this happened within 60 seconds.
All of this happens within 60 seconds, which is important to note because Thor says, the hammer returns just in time, another few seconds, and it would have been gone a full minute, causing me to lose my powers. Then Don Blake would have been standing here trying to catch it, a feat he could never perform. Last time we talked about Thor, you asked me what would happen if the hammer was thrown for more than 60 seconds, and apparently the answer is he would turn back into Don Blake, but then he would still have to catch the hammer.
He'd get just absolutely fucking pulverized. Or would the hammer just...
would be...
Would the hammer just stop moving? I mean, momentum's still a thing.
That's
Imagine
pretty much
the god
end
of
of that.
thunder and the god of mischief both battling here on Earth before our eyes. How romantic. It makes our ordinary life seem so dull, doesn't it, Dr. Blake?
Well, it's all in your point of view.
That's gonna be my Jane voice forever.
I mean, it fits. Jane's personality was not very well developed at this point,
At least, doesn't this make going over to Jean feel very nice?
It does. She at least, she's got something going on.
She puts up with a lot of shit from the boys, but she does not sit here and just fawn over every dude.
Every single man that crosses her fucking path.
Except the Executioner. The Executioner's no good.
No. That's the end of the issue. As I noted earlier, Filbert did not come up.
Oh, god damn it. I was really looking forward to finding out Filbert's future, whatever the fuck.
Filbert's future, whatever the fuck. That's exactly what it said. Before we get into the next issue, I did want to let you know that I did find out how many issues we have to go before we get to the official Thor title.
Yes?
Yeah.
How many issues?
The answer is that there are 42 issues of Journey into Mystery with Thor.
So I need to do the math on this. That is...
Yeah, we're three down, 39 to go.
Okay, 39 to go from...
Call it 38.
Yeah.
Call it 38, because we're going to do the second issue right here.
So that means we have 19 episodes of Thor content, which really just comes back around to 38 issues, because we go every other week on Thor. We are going to be reading Journey into Mystery for the rest of time.
Yep. Pretty much.
That's alright. We're going to be in the Silver Age for quite a while, folks, just because of how we're doing this. But it takes a while anyways. If we ever want to get out of Journey into Mystery, let's fucking move along.
Alright, we're moving on to Journey into Mystery number 86 by our dudes, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This issue is the introduction of Zarko, the Tomorrow Man.
I have never heard of Zarko the Tomorrow Man before.
Yeah, he's a recurring Thor villain, but he's not really relevant anywhere else.
Oh, cool. That's actually exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. So we're just gonna skip past the first page because it's irrelevant.
Okay.
The story starts in the future, actually. On Earth, 3 centuries from now, mankind has abolished war and scrapped its weapons.
But there's
peace and contentment
but dudes are
prevail
still
throughout the globe.
But dudes are still wearing suits.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever change from the 60s. Everyone will just always be wearing suits.
Yeah, but at least they don't have war anymore, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna argue that. And hey, suits are cool.
They are cool. Everyone is very happy except for this dude, Zarko. He wants to rule the world, I guess. In order to do this, he invents a time machine. He's going to go back in time to when they had weapons and steal one.
He's able to invent a time machine, but he can't invent a weapon?
Yeah, that's a great question. He could just, make one. Literally just, sharpen a knife, and you'll have the entire game cornered, okay?
If only Sharpo, the world's greatest knife thrower, were here.
Oh gosh, if only. Zarko determines that the best time to get a weapon was in the 60s.
I mean, it ain't a bad place to start.
Yeah, so he's gonna go back and get a nuclear bomb. He's kind of going for the biggest thing right off the bat. Flashback to the present day, aka the 60s. Thor is participating in a weapons test for some reason. First of all, these guys shoot a missile, and then they shoot an anti-missile missile. And then Thor goes after both of the missiles to try to catch up to them. He does. And these army dudes are like, wow, I'm so glad we have Thor to test our weapons. He's a good metric to use, I guess.
Really baffling logic. Anti-missile missiles are actually a thing, though pretty sure they're not called that. I can't remember what they are called because I am several drinks into the night. But I digress. This is a really bizarre way to go about this.
Yeah, so the test is their anti-missile missile faster than Thor, which is scientifically not actually very valuable.
They just wanted to know. They've got fuck you money from the government, and they can just throw it away on, hey, is our anti-missile missile faster than Thor?
I mean, they're the U.S. military, so yeah, they do have a ton of money. Not to get too political.
God, we need to stop doing this. We're gonna piss off anyone who wants to listen. No, dude, I'm the one who fucking said it.
I know. So, the second test, they, hook up these, they don't actually say what they are, but it's, some kind of readers that they have to wire up to Thor.
Weights.
Because what they're going to do is set off a cobalt bomb with Thor standing right next to it, because they want to know exactly what it does to the human body, but any normal person would die, so Thor says, I'll survive it. What? Just set off a bomb in my face.
What? What?
Yeah.
What? So if Thor will survive it, this is not very valuable information as to how a normal human would handle this. If a normal human would not survive it and Thor would.
Well, that's the thing is, like...
This is not useful information.
Like, they say, now we'll be able to test a human's physiological reaction, which is like, Thor isn't human, though.
Also, you expect me to believe that all these wires are going to survive it?
Oh yeah, and the machinery and everything? Sure.
I got so many questions. Well, we don't got time for that.
Never fear, because before the bomb can go off, Zarko appears in his time machine. And he jumps out of the time machine and grabs the bomb, and then gets back in the time machine and leaves before anyone does anything. Thor, he tries to react. He, flexes off the wires that are attached to him. And he throws Mjolnir at Zarko, but Zarko, he's in the time machine and he's disappeared before the hammer hits him. They're like, who was that guy? Where did he come from? Where'd he go? Where did he come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. All that's left behind is this weird scrap of metal they can't identify it, or they don't know what it is, or whatever. Thor takes it, and he flies off to a high mountain, and he summons a rainstorm. So, here we have Thor talking to Odin for the first time. And Odin manifests in, the rain clouds.
This has never happened any other time he's summoned a thunderstorm, or has it, and we just didn't see that?
No, I think it's, there's a specific intent behind it. You wouldn't accidentally summon Odin. I mean, I guess he might be able to butt dial him, but...
Butt hammer dial him.
So, Thor's like, hey Dad, I need you to let me go into the future to where this metal comes from. And Odin's like, yeah, no big deal. You've forgotten that your hammer has the power to spin faster than light and enter the fourth dimension of time. So,
I have way more
that to the list.
Yeah, I have way more problems with that than turning back into Don Blake breaking the hypnosis.
Add that to the list of Thor's powers, I guess. Because
I'm sure he'll be time traveling all the time now, and this will not go away ever again. This will be constant.
He can time travel. Think about this. Really think about this. Because what this comic is asserting in fucking the 60s is that Thor can time travel whenever he wants. And also that the hammer can spin faster than light, which means that Thor can move faster than light. So Thor can move faster than light and also travel through time. This is absolutely ridiculous.
This is going to continue to be a thing, right? Thor being able to travel through time, just with no strings attached, I'm sure.
Yeah. No comment.
Okay, so, now I'm concerned. No, you need to explain that.
Okay, I'm gonna say I don't remember.
Okay, I hate that answer.
Genuinely, I don't remember. I think it happens again, but I don't know. It's been a long time since I read these last.
This woman on the right-hand side of the next page has just a huge fucking whole forehead.
Yes. Thor travels through time, as he is able to do, apparently. And he goes to the future, and he shows up, and so they're all like, oh yeah, Zarko appeared last month with the bomb, and he took over the world, because he has the only weapon, and if we didn't let him rule us, then he would just kill us, I guess.
How handsome he is!
No one thinks he's handsome. Yeah, and there's this weird panel of people telling him about this, which is just their disembodied heads talking, which is a weird way to represent it. And there is a lady with a giant Hulk forehead. So Thor's like, well, I'm gonna save you from Zarko, but I need your help to do this, and here's my plan. And then it trails off. So the next day, Zarko sees Thor coming up to his palace. So he sends guards down to catch him, and these guards go in these flying cars, I guess. But before they can get to Thor, some mysterious black-robed figure throws an entire tree at them.
What's the point of having a flying car if you can't even just fly over a tree?
Well, the tree wasn't in front of them. The tree was thrown at them. So it's not really a matter of flying over the tree so much as not getting hit by the tree.
I thought he just dropped it on the road. My bad.
So Thor continues going, and so does this black-robed figure, goes after Thor. They're just running up. Thor runs into the palace, and Zarko's like, "Ha, I've got you now," and drops him through a trapdoor into a room of magnetic mirrors.
Oh,
which is just...
Stan loves his magnets.
Okay, but this is genuinely incredible because it's like a funhouse room of mirrors, but the mirrors are magnetized. So he
That's very confusing considering magnetic poles, but go off, I guess.
Okay, but it's funny because by magnetizing the mirrors, he smacks Thor straight into them several times.
No, I'm into it. It's just confusing. I'm into it. It's pretty cool.
I'm not saying it makes sense, I'm just saying it's funny. Zarko is slamming Thor into these mirrors, which is hilarious. But suddenly, Hammer smashes his controls, and then it turns out the dude in the black robe was actually Thor, and the guy who was Thor was actually a dude dressed like Thor.
God, called Thor. It. I thought that the guy in the robe was Thor, and then I was like, oh, well, maybe he's not Thor, but it was Thor.
It was Thor. Hang on, let me recap that plan for you really quick. They disguised another dude as Thor. They put Thor in this black robe so that Zarko would focus on the dude dressed as Thor and not actual Thor. But then Thor in the black robe was also just following the fake Thor. Like, they were literally together the entire time. So...
Genius!
Yeah.
He'll never see it coming.
It's foolproof. So,
I buy that he'd never see it coming, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I mean, that's totally fair. So Zarko's like, I'll send you into another dimension. And Thor's like, oh, fuck.
It's that face, I'm sorry.
God damn you. Let me read this panel to you. Before Thor can hurl his hammer, he begins to fade away. But the mightiest man-god of all time is not without resources himself. He draws in a great breath, and then he exhales it with hurricane force.
Hurricane breath. Jotting that down on his powers along with time travel.
The supernatural fury of the gale pierces the dimension veil before it can be fully closed, and Thor again returns to the third dimension. Because wind, apparently, can make you not travel dimensions.
Also, like, the third dimension, what makes things not flat?
What are you talking about, third dimension?
And Thor again returns to the third dimension and his pursuit of Zarko.
Yes. The third dimension is the dimension that we live in.
The dimension that makes things not flat. I don't understand.
That is the dimension that we exist in.
Yes, but I don't...
What don't you understand about it?
Is sending him to a dimension where he'd be flat?
He's sending him to another dimension. Okay, so I think the confusion here is that where Stan is mixing up the fantasy version of other dimensions with the actual scientific thing of other dimensions.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely where my confusion is coming from.
Yeah. So the assertion is that Zarko is sending him to one of the other dimensions in science, so either he would be flat or he would be going to the fourth dimension, which he has power over anyway. Or something like that. But
Zarko.
He manages to avoid that by blowing really hard, so it's fine. So Zarko runs away, and then he sicks some robots on Thor. And these robots are able to just grab his hammer away from him. And he's like, oh fuck, without my hammer I'll turn back into Dawn. I have to get it back in 60 seconds. These next few panels I actually really like. Thor decides he's gonna rip up the floor, and he's going to get to some water pipes that are underneath the floor. Something worth noting here is that there's a countdown for this entire sequence.
I love the countdown. It's really ramping up the tension.
It is, it's awesome, and absolutely adore it, and I wish they continued to do it after this point. Thor cracks up at this water pipe and floods the room. The robots start to short out. The one that has the hammer drops it, and he grabs it, just in time at the last second. Illustrated by that countdown, which is fantastic. Very good storytelling. Thor runs after Zarko, and Zarko's like, okay, that's everything I had, so I guess the last thing that I can do is go up in this spaceship and then use the bomb to destroy the world.
Bro, why? You wanted to rule the world.
Very good question.
Why blow it up? If you can't rule the world, there's no point?
Yeah, I guess.
That's spiteful.
Yeah.
Petty bitch.
And also, like, why was this all of his defenses?
A handful of robots.
2 guards, a magnet mirror room, a few robots, and that was it. He tried to send it to another dimension.
I guess that considering nobody had any weapons, he didn't need to prepare for much. He wasn't exactly expecting a god to follow him from the past.
That's completely fair, actually. I don't think anyone would expect that. I'd like to say in the 3rd panel on this page, Thor actually looks very gorgeous.
Yeah, he looks quite handsome.
He does. So Zarko flies up in a spaceship with his bomb, and Thor's like, oh god, I gotta stop him before he destroys everything. So he summons a storm.
Let there be storm, storm, storm!
I mean, that's what he does. He's the thunder god.
I love it, though. It's silly.
It is. It's awesome. So the storm fucks up Zarko's ship, and he can't deploy the bomb. So then the god of thunder raises himself into the air by whirling his hammer, and in so doing, creates a suction of air that spins the little spacecraft around and around until the bomb just falls out of it.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you can really say about that. And he catches it, and he lands on the ground, and I actually really like this pose, him landing on the ground. It's very dynamic and cool looking.
It kind of looks like he's playing football, and he's really leaping for the ball.
Yeah, it's awesome. He lands on the ground. Meanwhile, Zarko crashes, and they're able to find him alive in the wreckage, but he has lost his memory.
Not again!
At least Professor X didn't have anything to do with it that we know of.
That we know of.
So everyone in the future is super appreciative, and they're like, hey, thanks Thor, long live the mighty Thor. And Thor's like, cool, I gotta take this bomb back to the 60s.
Why?
Good question.
The military's got fuck you money, they can make another one.
So Thor once again uses his unlimited time travel powers to go back to 1962. He gives these guys their bomb back, and he's like, I won't tell you what happened because you wouldn't believe me. And they're like, okay.
Jane's a brunette now.
Yes.
Cool.
I think she was a redhead even earlier in this book. No, she didn't show up in this book. She was in the last book. But she's a brunette now, so.
You know, she's just dyeing her hair, having some fun with it. Good for her.
You know, she's single. She's loving it.
I mean, I'm jelly. I can't just dye my hair colors. It's too dark.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, girl, you're making good use of this blonde hair.
Anyway, that being done, Thor returns to his quiet life as Don Blake. He goes back to his private practice, and Jane is there, and she's reading the newspaper. And he's like, did anything happen while I was gone? And she's like, are you kidding? Did you read the papers?
Maybe private practice. I think we're still at the point where this is debatable. He was at that hospital. Whatever. Stupid.
It's a doctor's office. Dawn says, no, Jane, nothing in the papers interests me. It's all too nerve-wracking.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
And Jane's like, oh, if only I could work for Thor instead of colorless Don Blake.
Yeah, it's like, okay, there's one thing throwing off some suspicion, and there's something else just making yourself out to be just the wussiest, most spineless wimp. If you want this girl to like you, like, come on, dude. You can be not suspicious as being Thor without just being a fucking limp noodle of wet pasta.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's stand for you.
You don't think it'd be that way, but it do.
It do.
Alright, so those were our 2 issues. I'm actually enjoying Thor a lot, and I think that Stan has a lot to do with it. Like, I'm having a fun time with it, but I think that it would be much harder to get me into this if it was real lore heavy at the start. But it's super Silver Age superhero-y, so, like, that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew that would probably draw you in, honestly.
It did. There are a couple of heroes that I feel like I don't think I would like, but I probably would like. Doctor Strange is another one where it's like, well, maybe I wouldn't like this, but maybe I would super like this. Which is weird, because I'm weird about magic. Nobody asked this, I just felt like volunteering that information.
It's fine. I think if you're able to get attached to the characters, then you can enjoy genres that you might not necessarily have liked otherwise.
Yeah. So anyway, my thing for today, I'm going to talk about... God, it sure seems like our second segment just always comes back to the MCU, but like, I'm gonna take this back to the MCU for a minute. So, as I said a couple episodes ago, I've been watching the MCU movies with my parents, and especially towards the end of where we kind of are right now, I've been doing a lot of reordering. But there's some reordering that I would do earlier, too. So I wanted to discuss that a little bit. The way I would order the MCU if I were just rewatching it. So I don't know if that's interesting to you, but since I've been rewatching it, things I would do. I would probably put Captain America the First Avenger between Iron Man and Iron Man 2. Because that kind of establishes Cap's relationship with Howard Stark before you see older Howard Stark in Iron Man 2. Which is nice, I think. And it kind of sets the stage for things like Tony putting the shield underneath his super collider or whatever it's called. Things like that, I think it kind of sets the stage for a little better. So I think that's handy, because before that, it was just Iron Man and then Iron Man 2.
Which is a lot of Iron Man to process all at once.
Yeah, it really is. I think something to break those up is very handy. So the next change I would make, well, this is one I can't in good conscience actually say goes here because it makes sense, but like what I wish I could do is put Captain America the Winter Soldier before Avengers Age of Ultron. It's always really bugged me how it's like, SHIELD is bad, SHIELD is gone, and then the very next movie it's like, bring the helicarrier out of mothballs. Like, Jesus Christ, way to give me fucking whiplash. So I wish that I could put Winter Soldier before Age of Ultron, but I really can't because Sam Wilson, he shows up for a few scenes in Age of Ultron, so it makes it really hard to just move that ahead of time, even though I wish it could. Even though I love Sam, it's the one place where I would like cut Sam out just to reorder that to make it a little less jarring. I mean, it still kind of works as it is because... if you could move it afterwards, there's also some nice synergy with Ant-Man, because Ant-Man has some of those Hydra goons in the aftermath of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s fall. So it would be nice to carry that theme over from one movie to another. S.H.I.E.L.D. had trouble, and that trouble was Hydra, and now here are those Hydra goons out buying technology. That would be great, I think. But... unfortunately, Sam is in Avengers Age of Ultron, so I can't really get away with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. God, this is not a very good discussion. This is just me talking about some bullshit.
It's okay.
So, what I did is kind of, after this, do a lot of moving things based on times things happened, movies that tied in with other movies, because... if you watch it in release order, it gets a little jarring, especially if you're trying to introduce someone to a series, because there's all this, oh, the snap happened, and then we're back in time, and then, oh, it's time for zany adventures with Ant-Man. It's like, wow, whiplash. If you're watching them one each night back to back, it's like, oh my god, how do I go from all the heroes that you've been watching for ages, half of them just got snapped into dust. Now it's time for zany adventures with Ant-Man.
That's a bit of a tonal shift, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of whiplash. So Captain America Civil War happens, and Black Panther happens pretty much immediately afterwards. You see T'Challa heading back home, literally from that conflict, because you're seeing the reports on the news about King T'Chaka's death. Black Panther literally takes place like a day or two after Civil War. Within the week. Mm-hmm. I moved Black Panther right after Captain America Civil War. Similarly,
sure.
Spider-Man Homecoming follows Black Panther because you have the opening scene with Peter's film about the events in Leipzig, Germany. I think it's just better to get that out of the way because my parents get really confused watching these sometimes. So it makes it easier to follow.
Sure.
If you're watching them all in a row. You may notice that I didn't put Guardians in the Galaxy in earlier. And that was for a reason. And that reason was that Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, from what I understand, don't actually take place that far apart. And also, it gets a little confusing sometimes when it's like, well, here are these guys, and now let's wait several years before we ever hear from them again. My mom's like, the green girl, was she here before? And I'm like, yeah, she was here for like the whole last movie. You know the green girl, Mom. So it's like,
oh, God.
Okay. So in an ideal world, Guardians of the Galaxy moves way later. So Guardians of the Galaxy is what I put next because I don't want to put them back to back. I want to have a little bit of time to watch something else, and so it's not just all space all the time. So after Guardians of the Galaxy, I put in Doctor Strange, which is kind of one of my pieces that can freely move around. Because Doctor Strange doesn't really have a whole lot going on with anything else. And the other reason I like this is because it kind of broadens out that universe all at once. Before this, things are... I won't say they're grounded, they're superhero movies, but everybody's on Earth, apart from you see Thanos a couple times, there's an alien invasion. Yeah, there's the Thor stuff, but the way that Marvel does it, and I know this is one of your complaints, he's just on Earth.
Yeah.
So, you have this relatively grounded thing, but then all at once the world just kind of opens up to the galactic stuff, to the mystic stuff. Mm-hmm. And all at once it's just like, wow, we're in a much bigger world. And I think that makes a very nice build-up to Infinity War. It's like, holy shit, everything is so much bigger than we even know.
Yeah.
So after Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's not a big space of time between them, but one of the things I like is that you hear about Yondu's... He was sold into slavery to the Kree by his parents. And then the next movie I put is Captain Marvel. So it's like, Yondu is sold into slavery by the Kree, and then we jump right into, here are the Kree, and here's what they're about. And I think that's got a good follow-through. Again, just kind of following story threads from movie to movie to movie, instead of just a collection of ideas and you're left to do this by yourself. Because when you're watching with newbie viewers, that's not always so easy.
Yeah, I've always loved how you tend to think these things out like this. Like, you do the same thing when you make playlists for road trips. And you just think about these things, like, more than I ever have in my entire life. It's very interesting.
Thank you. Well,
you're welcome.
So now is one of the things that we have to start getting into, okay, it's time to get around to Infinity War. So some of these movies start really tying in, especially with final scenes, where it's like, something is coming. When in reality, the way they were released is like, something just happened and we're reacting. But I almost think it's better if you use these end scenes as a teaser, where you see Captain Marvel and it's like, all these people are missing. Here's Captain Marvel. So what the fuck happened? I think it makes a good teaser, honestly. But also, I wanted Captain Marvel to be before Infinity War because I think it makes a better payoff when you're watching with someone else for you to have that information going in. If you're a comic book nerd and it's like, oh, that's Captain Marvel's signal. That's awesome. Captain Marvel is coming. But, like, if you don't know what's coming, it makes it a lot easier to follow rather than just some weird shit where it's like, oh, Nick Fury's got a pager, I guess, and he wanted to send a message to someone. When I think it's much easier with a newbie viewer to be like, holy shit, that's what that pager is. That's who he's calling. He's calling Captain Marvel.
Yeah, you're right. That does make a lot more sense because, like, if you're someone who doesn't know anything about comics, then you see that scene and it's like, okay.
Cool, I guess.
He's got a pager, okay.
And, like, similarly with Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think it makes a nice teaser to be like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened to Hope, Janet, and Hank? Where the fuck did they go? And why is the emergency broadcast system activated? I think that makes a good teaser for holy shit, what's coming. Because, I mean, like, that was initially kind of the point of these cutscenes. They kind of evolved over time to not be about that so much, not so much teasers for the things that are coming, as much as explanations of concepts or bonus content. But, like, I think it works that way. But also...
Yeah, I think about that for sure.
But also, I think that it's better to avoid the story distractions in the middle of the Infinity Gauntlet stuff, because it just makes for a very distracting story. So next we have Thor Ragnarok, because Thor Ragnarok, the end of it, dovetails into the beginning of Infinity War. Pretty much it's 5 minutes before Infinity War happens.
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok is kind of weird like that, because in theory it should take place around the same time as Civil War, but the end of it literally leads right into Infinity War, which is weird, because I think it was a while after that before Infinity War actually came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe it had something to do with that wormhole making time fucky.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, I know it took a while for Thor to get there, even after Loki got to Skaar.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they both were in there for a lot longer than they thought, in regards to the outside world. I don't know, man. It's a theory. I haven't watched Thor Ragnarok in a while. That's our movie for tomorrow.
No, boy.
So, after that, I want Infinity War and Endgame to go right together. No movies in between. I think it's a distraction from the story, and I like going from... No matter your problems with the MCU Infinity Saga, you have to admit when you left that theory, there was just shock. A degree of shock. Even if you knew what was coming, it was still like, holy shit. I was emotionally fucking gutted at the time.
Yeah, I remember going in, I was like, I knew 100% that Loki was going to die, but then it happens in the first 5 minutes, and I was just like, oh, okay.
I left that movie fucking gutted. So I think it works really well to go from the horror of what just happened and then going to the aftermath. I think that works much better than, all your heroes just died, here's Ant-Man! And now
here's Ant-Man doing some silly things.
And now we get to travel back in time to like 25 years before this, to something that barely has any relevance to anything going on. It's like, yay!
Yeah.
So I think it works much better to have Infinity War and Endgame back to back, rather than with a bunch of stuff in between. And I understand why they would do that for a release schedule, because they want to keep pumping out movies, but like, for a rewatch, that is not how I want to watch it. Not at all.
Speaking of pumping out movies, they keep pushing back Black Widow even more.
Oh my god, they pushed Black Widow back again?
Yes, they pushed Black Widow back again.
Oh my god.
And people are like, why won't they just put it on fucking Disney Plus? But they won't do it. They just keep pushing it back. It's ridiculous.
It kills me, because at this point, because of COVID, they have like 4 movies due to come out this year.
Yeah, honestly.
I was looking at the release schedule a while ago, and it's like, I forget what it is. There's Shang-Chi, I think. There's another Spider-Man movie. There's Black Widow, and there's Eternals, I think. As like, these things were initially spread out, and now they're all coming out in one year. It's like, oh, holy shit. This is the opposite of 2020, if it actually happens.
Yeah, if they even actually do come out.
Yeah. So anyway, obviously at the end of this just comes Spider-Man Far From Home as a reaction to Endgame, and that's our last movie.
Watch order, I think, for MCU fans is a pretty big deal. Like, I've definitely seen a lot of different breakdowns of how people prefer to do it. I don't really particularly care, personally, but that's just me.
You see anything interesting in those?
Well, I don't, actively go looking for them. I just mean I have seen them at some point.
You may note that the Incredible Hulk is completely missing from this watch order. And that's because in my ideal world, I've erased the Incredible Hulk from the MCU. I mean, the only payoff it has is when Thunderbolt Ross shows up in Civil War, you can be like, hey, I know that guy, that's Thunderbolt Ross. That's the only payoff. That and the Hulk says he broke Harlem, but like that could easily just be a standalone joke.
Okay, by now, we all know your feelings about the Incredible Hulk. We've talked about it twice now.
I know.
Do not send us your emails about Incredible Hulk.
Send us your emails about the Incredible Hulk. I want to hear it.
Damn it.
Tell me how much you love the Incredible Hulk 2008.
Tell us all about how it's the quintessential film to the MCU watch order.
And I am a complete pleb for skipping it.
Pleb?
Anyway, let's close this bitch down. Anyway, so that's our issue for today. We need to close out with a few announcements. For one, we have reached 10 to 12 listeners. Thank you. We've gotten us into the double digits. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You know what would be really cool is if those 10 to 12 listeners would follow us on social media.
Or if they were really, really cool, they could donate to our Patreon and cover our server costs, because with the length of this bad boy, I'm going to have to pay money to upload this episode.
Yeah, we are going to have to pay money to upload our episodes for like the rest of the month, I think. If you can't afford to become a patron, one thing you could do that would really super duper help us is, first of all, subscribe if you're not subscribed already on whatever podcatcher you listen on. But second of all, and is if you can, please, please, please go to iTunes or Podchaser and give us a quick rating or a review, or both. That would help us a lot, because the more ratings we have, the more people are going to be able to find the podcast. So that's really the most important thing for when you're starting a new podcast, is to get a lot of good ratings and reviews. So if you want to help us out, you can do that. You can also tell a friend about us. That would be cool.
One other thing you could do, you could watch us on YouTube and get our numbers up there so we can put on ad revenue, and that would help us. So if you want to watch us on YouTube, we put out a version weekly with comic clips from the episode we're talking about, where you can kind of see some of the things we're talking about in real time when it's like, wow, Thor just made an incredible face. It could be like you were there.
It's like you're part of the conversation.
Just a quiet part. You don't talk. You're a very quiet participant. And that's okay. We respect that. Sometimes you're just shy. The silent partner of the Comicsplaining Podcast.
Yes. That's exactly what you are.
Anyway, we mentioned our social media earlier. We didn't mention exactly what that was. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, or Tumblr, all Comicsplaining, so that's pretty easy. Or if you do choose to support us on Patreon, that's also at Comicsplaining. Or YouTube, also Comicsplaining. If you want to send us an email, that's comicsplaining@gmail.com. I remember I prompted you on to send me an email earlier. I don't remember what about, but please send it. Or tell us again. We want to hear why The Incredible Hulk is a masterpiece. I cannot stress this strongly enough. Tell us how much you love 2008's The Incredible Hulk.
I don't want to hear it.
I do.
You can tell them.
If you send us an email, we will read it on the podcast. So,
you know, that's not a bad idea, actually. That's something I also wanted to say. We will read emails on the podcast if you send them. We will also, if you do review us on iTunes or Podchaser, we will give you a shout out for sure. And if you subscribe to Patreon, the first thing you can expect is a shout out in the next episode that we record.
Absolutely. We'll put that in the end here. We will give a shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. If anybody out there plays Marvel Puzzle Quest, go ahead and join our alliance. We are 615. That's the number 6, the number 1, and spelled out fix. We're looking for new members for our alliance so we can do better at events, because I think that would be great.
Yes, allow me to please promote my webcomic. It is on Tapas. It is called Ephemeris. It's EPHEMERIS. You can find that if you just search for it. It's pretty easy to find. There's nothing else with that name. I mean, other than the thing that it's named after. This is irrelevant. But yeah, check out my webcomic. Also, if you're into D&D, you can find me playing Curse of Strahd every Sunday, 7 p.m. EST on twitch.tv/droptune. I'm there. We're going to be trying to interact with viewers a little bit more, so it's a good time to catch up on the VODs and see what's going on with us.
All right, with all that said, I think that's going to wrap us up for this week. Next week, we are going to be back with the X-Men again, and we look forward to talking to you then. Bye.
Bye.